CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.
Now the news. I'm Shane Bigham. China's decided to suspend talks with the United States from holding a new round of consultations over arms control and non-proliferation. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Jian said the U.S. has undermined the political atmosphere of the consultations. He said the U.S. has continued to engage in arms sales to the Taiwan region and taken a series of measures that undermine China's core interests. Lin said the responsibility for the suspension lies squarely on the U.S. side. The spokesperson said China's willing to maintain communication with the U.S. on international arms control on the basis of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation. China's permanent representative to the UN is criticizing NATO for exacerbating global political polarization and economic deglobalization trends. Botsong made the remarks during an open debate at the UN Security Council on international order and multilateral cooperation. He called for efforts to promote a fair and more equitable international order and empower developing countries. The diplomat criticized NATO for its Cold War-era military alliance. He accused it of exacerbating camp confrontation and shifting blame to external countries regarding the Ukraine crisis. The World Trade Organization has held a side meeting to help its members better understand China's trade and economic policies. The event is ahead of the organization's 9th trade policy review of China. Experts and scholars from China and representatives of foreign-funded enterprises in the country introduce the policies and experiences to expand opening up. The experts also analyze China's macroeconomic performance and outlook and elaborate on the country's new steps to develop new quality productive forces and promote the development of the private economy. Data shows that Beijing's gross domestic product increased 5.4% in the first half of the year. The Chinese capital's GDP reached more than $300 billion in the first 6 months. Emerging sectors showed strong performance from January to June, with the production of new energy vehicles, wind turbines, integrated circuits, and industrial robots increasing. Russia and Ukraine have exchanged 95 prisoners from each side. Russian authorities say the United Arab Emirates mediated that swap. The freed Russian soldiers will be taken to Moscow for medical treatment and rehabilitation from the Defense Ministry's medical facilities. In late May and June, Russia and Ukraine conducted 2 rounds of prisoner swaps, bringing 75 and 90 military personnel from each side. The Palestine Red Crescent Society says Israel's released 13 Palestinian detainees. They returned to Gaza after passing through a checkpoint in southern Israel. Reports say an elderly woman is among them. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has met Israeli officials to push for a Gaza ceasefire deal. His visit comes as tensions continue along the Israel-Lebanon border. Sarah Coates has more from northern Israel.
Very direct message from Antony Blinken to Israel's Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer and also the National Security Advisor Zahi Hanegbi. Now, Blinken said to the 2 very senior ministers that the U.S. has serious concerns about recent civilian casualties in Gaza. He said they remain unacceptably high. Now, this, of course, follows this big number of Israeli attacks in the Gaza Strip over these last few days.
The Australian Energy Minister has said a proposal to build nuclear reactors in Australia is incompatible with the country's rollout of renewable energy. In a speech to the National Press Club in Canberra on Wednesday, Chris Bowen said Australians have to make a choice between reliable renewables and risky nuclear reactors at the next general election. It was Bowen's first major speech since opposition coalition leader Peter Dutton revealed a plan in June to repeal Australia's ban on nuclear power and build 7 nuclear power plants if he's elected Prime Minister. With the Paris Olympics just a week away, concerns are growing over whether the River Seine will be ready to host the outdoor swimming events. Parisians in Maire-Anne Hidalgo took a dive in the Seine on Wednesday, aiming to dispel fears. Ken Brown has more from Paris.
Swimming in the River Seine has become à la mode. The latest politician to leap into the water to try and prove that it's clean and ready is Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris. Experts say that the water is clean and has been clean for the past 10 days or so. Now, this all thanks to a massive investment, some $1.5 billion spent on trying to clean up the river, on a new water basin in the center of the city, on improving sewer and wastewater treatment facilities.
So that's the news. I'm Shane Bigham.
Discussion
Innovation keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
Hello everybody, welcome to Roundtable, coming to you from Beijing. I'm He Yan. On today's show, ever wished you could download knowledge directly into your brain like Neo in the Matrix? Well, we might not be there yet, but we're getting a lot closer. Today's technology allows us to control a computer with just our thoughts, and even operate a robot with a lab-grown human brain. From Neuralink's human trials to China's robots with artificial brains, we're exploring the wild world of brain-computer interfaces. So, put on your thinking caps, or should I say, neuro implants, and let's dive into this electrifying topic. And we take a look at the booming goods circle in the ACG, or animation, comics, or games world, where a coveted single item can fetch more than 10,000 yuan in an auction, which fuels the craze for merchandising. And how does it impact the ACG industry? For today's program, I'm joined by Yushun and Steve Hatherley in the studio. First on today's show, as the slogan goes, a mind is a terrible thing to waste, but a wonderful thing to invest in, and invest they are. Earlier this year, Elon Musk's company Neuralink successfully implanted their N1 chip into a human being. And now Chinese scientists from Tianjin University and the Southern University of Science and Technology have built a robot capable of performing critical tasks using an artificial brain grown from human stem cells. So why don't we start with just a brief overview of what's happened before we dive into the specifics?
So, first of all, according to the official website of Tianjin University, the latest invention by scientists from Tianjin University and the Southern University of Science and Technology, namely organoid, a robot controlled by a lab-grown artificial brain, is a significant breakthrough. According to reports from China Daily, while making a brain from stem cells, often referred to as brain organoid, which is quite different from a real human brain, is not that rare. And how to enable it to receive orders or even control machines like the villain Crane in Ninja Turtles did remains a challenge. And the process looks easy, but involves decoding the brain, converting its thought process into electrical signals, and then sending the signals to the machine in order to control it. And also, there has to be a channel for the brain to receive feedback from the robotic arms it is supposed to control. And the research team has trained the brain for robot obstacle avoidance and tracking, grasping, and other tasks, and completed the inspiration work of various kinds of brain computing.
So they designed this brain to be inserted into this robot, and then they programmed the brain to be able to tell the robot what to do. And you said that the robot can move out of the way if there's something in the way. It can track objects or targets, and it can also pick up stuff with its hands as well. It's pretty amazing in terms of science and in terms of advancements. This is really exciting. And it's really cool too, isn't it?
Of course.
I think it's definitely cool, but there's also this a little bit of unnerving aspect to it. And every time we talk about the brain and also growing a brain, not specifically maybe from a petri dish, but certainly in a lab, and then, you know, letting it operate the robot, that's all just very sci-fi and very, I guess, brand new to people. And I think that's also the exciting part to talk about.
Yeah, it's the exciting part, and I think it's the part that makes people uncomfortable too.
Yeah.
This brain organoid, when we learn about a story like this, there's so much to unpack, I think, including the vocabulary, right? Because for laymen like us, we have to learn exactly the ins and outs of what this means. So this brain, or this brain organoid, this is grown in vitro, and it's tissue that resembles a human brain. And the These are grown by culturing stem cells, and when they grow them, they turn into this three-dimensional object, and it can be maintained for years if scientists can figure out how to get it all the things that a brain needs. If you look at the pictures in the articles, you'll see the robot with this big pink brain sitting on top of it, right?
Yeah.
That's for aesthetic purposes only. That's not the whole brain. It's actually, the organoid is actually much smaller than that.
I'm sorry, but what you said just, this is possibly just going to make some people uncomfortable, but there's this great delicacy of pig brain in certain parts of China, such as Sichuan province, in a way. Last time I saw, like, a brain-like object, smushy was then. But now, I mean, it's so interesting to see that the scientists are growing this in a lab. And,
Also, the stem cells. It is a type of cell that forms brain tissue in the body and were used to build this brain. Then they paired it with a computer chip that passes instructions to the robot's body. This mixture of human cells and computer chips allows it to function like a human brain. And the capabilities of stem cells are incredibly powerful, actually. We know that they have the ability to divide and proliferate and play a crucial role in tissue repair within the reserve functions of each organ.
It's really functioning like a human brain. They put the neural implant into the tissue that they grew in the lab in vitro. That chip that they inserted, it interacts with the neurons in the brain that they grew, and together, working together between the neurons and the electrode or the chip, it communicates to the robot, and that's how it allows it to pick up stuff and move out of the way and track targets, all the things that Yushin mentioned before. It's really scientific, and there's just a lot to learn here. But yeah, that's kind of the sciencey part when we learn about the chip and we learn about the brain.
yes, and this technology essentially is using brain-computer interfaces, or BCI technology, and it's basically allowing a person to control a computer directly with your brain.
Yeah, and this interface, it's the same system, and maybe we'll get to Elon Musk in a little while, but this is the same system used to create Elon Musk's Neuralink chip that was implanted, as you mentioned earlier on in the show, into a human patient's brain. So this development here in China is kind of growing on the heels of, we're following the success of Neuralink's success with the implant into a human.
And also, I don't know whether this is more unsettling or maybe a little bit less unsettling for people, that it's being experimented in a lab-grown brain. And we can say that scientists are pushing the boundaries of what's possible when we merge minds with machines. If it's meant to function like a human brain, that has to create challenges for scientists. And what are these challenges?
First of all, that the Chinese scientists have not revealed how they trained the organoid to know when the robot should perform specific tasks. Researchers explained that the robot does not have eyes and only responds through the electrical and sensory signals sent by the neurons. Ming Dong, vice president of Tianjin University, said that unlike traditional technologies that primarily use the human brain or other biological brains as experimental subjects, the brain on chip has emerged as an important new branch in the field of brain-computer interfaces. And Ming also noted that the research is expected to have a revolutionary impact on developing cutting-edge scientific fields such as hybrid intelligence and brain-like computing.
Yeah, to answer your question about like the problems that they have, the human brain, the brains that we have on the tops of inside our head right now, they're quite sensitive, as a matter of fact, and they have a lot of needs to operate properly. They need fluids, for example. They need nutrient lines, for example, temperature control. You can't have a brain that's overheated or too cold at the same time. It also needs to have a protective casing. Can you hear that? Me knocking on my head? Well, that's okay if I knock on my head because my brain is protected by our skulls. These are the problems that not the problems, but these are the issues that the scientists are facing when they're looking at maintaining these brains that they're growing in vitro over a long period of time. Some of the stuff they're doing right now is intentionally trying to create a stronger network in the neurons so that they can maintain these brains for a really long time. And it'll be another great advancement when they get there.
And what exactly are the scientists hoping to accomplish here?
Yes, also according to the China Daily Report, the significance of this breakthrough, we will say, is that the cultivation of the brain organoid has improved, enhancing the hope of any such kind of organoid growing into a real brain in the future, thus opening the door wider toward the sci-fi scenario that we saw in the movie or a lot of these series of artificial brains controlling machine bodies. Unlike in the animation described, the one that I saw before, they won't be used by this Crane or the villain, but by doctors to help a paralysis patient stand up again.
So, Steve, are we talking about the possibility of also a brain transplantation in the future?
Yeah, that's kind of the long-term goal of the scientists here. In the short term, sure, they put this into a robot, and it's a really impressive thing that they've done, but they have medical aspirations as well. And in the paper that they released, it said the transplant of human brain organoids into living brains is a novel method for advancing organoid development and function. The grafts, or the things that they grow in the lab, they have a host-derived functional vasculature system, and they exhibit advanced maturation. That's a very long-winded way of saying what they want to do is they want to take these brain cultures that they grow in the lab, insert them into actual people's brains who have suffered from some sort of paralysis or neurological condition where their neurons have been damaged in their brain. And what they're hoping in the future is that they can successfully take the lab-grown brain, place it in a person's brain, and have those two things kind of fuse. I don't know if fuse is the right word, but interact successfully so that they can perhaps repair the damage that has been done to the brain. And if they can achieve that, we're talking about things like repairing vision for someone who has lost their eyesight. And this is such an exciting development because that actually happened not with a person, but with a mouse. They did this study at the University of Pennsylvania, and researchers inserted human neurons into the brains of rats. Now, those rats had damaged visual cortices, and that led to some of the affected areas to spring back to life. These neurons that were dead before, all of a sudden, with this new implant, they were able to have that electricity started firing in the neurons again.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and I think what is important is that they are trying to, repair the part of the brain, because brain is the most sophisticated part, I would say, in human beings. It's not like limbs. It's not like our just legs or something else,
It's not easily accessible. Right?
Yeah, and
you can't just pop the top off your head like you can a cola bottle or something like that.
Yes, and
maybe that's next. Who knows?
So from what I understand is that, in the future, if a person's brain suffers damage that results in the loss of their maybe eyesight or ability to move, and then by implanting an artificial brain into their brain, then this function can be restored.
It's incredible, isn't it?
It is. Also, just think about all the folks who suffer, let's say, from a stroke or spinal cord injuries. And, if this can work, then we're talking a whole new ballpark of what to do,
or what's possible, right? And that's where Elon Musk fits into all of this as well. So his company, Neuralink, maybe you've seen it in the news 10 million times because it's there all the time. Well, that company got started in 2016. And here's their mission statement. And this is where we see the division of two separate goals. This is what Neuralink's mission statement says: to create a generalized brain interface to restore autonomy to those with unmet medical needs today. That is mission statement number one, if you will. Unmet medical needs. But here's the end of that sentence. and unlock human potential tomorrow. So this is communicating two key approaches here. In the short term, Neuralink is focusing on individuals with the medical needs, but in the long term, their vision extends beyond the world of medicine, and they allude to a goal of augmenting human potential.
And what does that mean?
Well, that means inserting an electrode or a neural implant into your brain to help you focus better, to help you process information faster, to make your brain a better version of itself. The long-term goal, the other side of that mission statement, is not medical related at all. We're not talking about people with neurological disorders. We're talking about people who are okay, they're healthy, but an inserted chip into their brain in the future to make their brain a better brain.
Right. When I first read this, I was quite astonished, and I felt quite uncomfortable about the second part of this statement, because I just feel it could be opening potentially a whole can of worms that we don't want to face. But with a little bit more researchers in this field in China as well as in the U.S., what they've been doing, or at least the philosophy that they hold, it's not like Elon Musk is all that a maverick in wanting this. Because some people in the tech community believe that BCI is going to be a major mainstream technology in the future, not just for people with disabilities, but for basically anyone. And that the next big platform shift might not be people putting computers on our heads like VRs, like Vision Pro, what we talked about the other day, but it may be people putting computers in their head, and eventually we will all be walking around with these brain implants. And I mean, could this technology create a new class divide between superhumans with enhanced cognitive abilities and ordinary humans who might be left behind or even exploited? And let me just add, could there be a third class on top of these two that are the people who control the brain implants and operate these brain implants?
Well, I think the goal is to not have a stranger be operating your brain implant in the future, but that's a fair question. Computers get hacked, right? And that's one of the concerns for people. You know, talking about Elon Musk, and he's not the only person who's involved in this field of study, and this field of study itself is not really new at all. As a matter of fact, they've been doing this for decades, and there have been really significant advances over the years. In 2012, that's when they had the first brain-controlled robotic arm by a human. In 2017, a human controlled a cursor mentally to type out words and sentences. One of the biggest, I think, accomplishments we could say, was in 2015. That's when Eric Sorto, if you don't know that name, he's a 34-year-old American man. He was unable to move his arms or legs for more than a decade. He got shot. That's how he got injured. And he was living basically paralyzed for 10 years. And then he was the first person in the world to have a neural prosthetic device implanted in a region of the brain where he could make a thought about moving things, and he was successfully able to do that. He said, obviously, it changed his life. So my point is, Elon Musk isn't the only person who's been doing this. There's tons of researchers on this topic as we speak, and they've been on it for a really long time.
Yeah, and also I think what is new this time is that these research teams are really developing the experiments on the fact that it's not a one-way control of the nerves, because triggering an object to move is actually not that rare to see, but rather it requires mutual feedback between the artificial brain and the nerves. The artificial brain not only needs to control the nerves, but also needs to receive and read these kind of signals from the nerves indicating that the action has been completed. And also, all of these examples Steve listed, they are all cabled.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, and what you mean by that, Yushin, is that they were basically plugged in, like Neo from, second Neo reference of the day, like Neo from The Matrix. If you remember, he was plugged into a cable. These patients before, that's exactly what they were as well. You can see videos, you can see images, and that's one of the big advancements from N1. N1 is the name of the chip from Elon Musk's Neuralink. His chip is fully implantable, so you don't know it's in in there. If you don't know, then you don't know. It works from Bluetooth, and also the number of electrodes as well. The scientists in the past, I'm referencing Dr. Paul Nuyajukian here. I was watching a video about him. He works at Stanford University. How smart must this guy be? He directs the brain interfacing laboratory at Stanford. Probably a pretty impressive resume. Anyway, he was saying that one of the big advancements for N1 is that there are no cables. The patients are not plugged in to a computer outside. This is done through Bluetooth connection, and the number of electrodes, or wires, if you will, is all contained within that chip. And that chip, you probably think it's the size of a soccer ball or something. No, it's not. It's the size of a coin.
Wow, that is really amazing. And I happened to watch an interview done by the New York Times with the 30-year-old Nolan Albra.
He was the patient that
patient one
of
Neuralink N1 chip. And it was mind-blowing. This guy is so catty and definitely having a great time with life now. He's been paralyzed for 8 years because of a terrible accident. And then he talked about his experience of going under and getting the chip implanted into his brain. And like you guys said, there are no cords, no cables, and it was done really quickly, only in a matter of like more than 2 hours.
Wow.
The surgery was that quick. And also he said they woke me up using Bluetooth connection. And
does that mean in your brain you're here, Bluetooth connected?
no, you don't hear anything.
Alarm goes off in your brain.
Yeah. And then basically, you know, they wake you up with this implant with a little coil, almost the same thing, such as what we put our phone down on a plate to charge. And for him to charge the thing, he goes to bed sometimes wearing a hat, and then that charges the chip. And now he says that he enjoys the independence of playing computer games in the middle of the night and reading a book and doing all these things that he couldn't do because of a lack of mobility. And now he can do all these things. And those listeners of our show might remember I could be a little bit on the critical side when we talk about Elon Musk, but with what his company's doing on this front, it's really impressive.
That's what his supporters say. There are critics in the scientific community, though, that aren't really happy with the way that Elon Musk is going about things. For example, they feel like when these reports are on the news, patients kind of become like celebrities in a way. And I'm not even sure that that's a fair criticism, because of course they're going to be in the news. Of course they're going to get a lot of attention. But maybe there's criticism as to that's one of his ways to recruit potential patients in the future as well. So there are critics out there, you know, ethically, of Elon Musk, and of course everyone has critics, but yeah, there are people that are not so happy with the way that he's going about things.
Yes. Also, this is undoubtedly a very ambitious vision, but the industry also hopes that their experimental process and results can be more transparent.
Can we say a little bit more about the ethical minefield that we are potentially going into? And yes, we see that even the scientific community is kind of divided on this. So what about the average Joes and Janes? Joes and those are thinking about this.
Yeah, right. So if we switch from the medical side of things to the human potential side of things, would you consider getting an implant, a brain implant? And see, look at the reaction now. It's kind of like, it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? But it's not. We're here right now. We're about to be here.
Actually, I was thinking, that's the question now. I don't think I would intentionally implant machines or chips just to enhance my ability, like mental calculation or physical strength, like what you can see in Cyberpunk 2077, you know. But if you never know if faced with unavailable circumstances, and the cost is within a, I would say, bearable scope. I think, why not give it a try?
Unavoidable circumstances, meaning medical purposes.
Yes.
Yeah, right. But not for just your own abilities. I'd do it. Make my brain smarter? Yes, please. I need that.
As we stand on the brink of a new era in brain-computer interface technology, it's important that we navigate these advancements with caution and ethical foresight, in my opinion. How do we balance the incredible potential of brain-on-chip technology with the need to protect individual rights and societal values? Well, think about that. We'll be back after this break. As you sip your morning coffee, we transport you from the sea of tulips in the countryside to the exciting moments of table tennis world. From to win the men's team title at table tennis. As you commute in the hustle and bustle of rush hour traffic, we guide you to navigate from intricacies of global markets, National Monetary Fund, tech revolutions, the conflict between Israel and Palestine, can cross the border, to the El Nino-triggered fires.
Over 90 active fires have been reported.
As you gather around a community event, we provide you the vibrant sounds on different topics, such as how AI empowers education, provide teachers and students. What does Loom or the Chinese dragon mean to the Chinese people?
Symbolizing great power, good luck, and strength.
Why live stream shopping is gaining popularity in Brazil. Entrepreneurs are seeking to establish a strong presence in the Brazilian market. CGTN Radio, your constant companion to connect people through sharing insights, interviews, and opinions that help us to see the world. Together with CGTN Radio, hear the difference. You can download the CGTN app to get more valued information.
Hey there, global listeners. Get ready for the hottest discussions on the airwaves. Roundtable, your passport to the heart of China's buzzing society. Pressing issues, lifestyle trends, and impactful policies, let's tackle them head on. With wit, wisdom, and a whole lot of fun. Discover the real China through the eyes and voices of its people. Gain a unique global perspective on topics that resonate universally. Tune in and turn up the excitement dial on Roundtable as we bridge gaps and break barriers one discussion at a time. Don't just listen, be transformed.
Discussion keeps the world turning.
This is Roundtable.
You're listening to Roundtable with myself, He Young. I'm joined by Yu Shun and Steve Hatherley in the studio. Coming up, today we're diving into the colorful world of merchandise and intellectual property development and product sales. Ever wondered why goods or goods have become such a hot topic? From figurines to keychains, let's explore what makes these items so irresistible and how they're shaping the ACG landscape. Get ready to geek out with us. And for all folks out there who rely on food delivery, have you noticed that your food delivery bill has been creeping up? That's because packaging fees are the latest hot topic in the Chinese food delivery scene. Are they justified costs? Our podcast listeners can find us at Roundtable China on Apple Podcasts, Xiaoyu Zhou, Spotify, and all major international platforms. If you have a question that you'd like us to answer in a future show, whether it be about something that happened in the news or something you've been wondering about, you could email us a voice memo to ezfmroundtable@foxmail.com. Now let's move on to the next topic discussion today. Have you ever felt the thrill of unboxing a limited edition figure such as a fierce demon slayer statue or the beautifully detailed Hatsune Miku Happy 17th Birthday version? These collectibles are more than just merchandise. They're a gateway to reliving epic moments and connecting with beloved characters. In the world of animation, comics, and games, or ACG, licensing and merchandising have become crucial aspects for creators. It's not just about entertainment anymore. It's about monetizing content and expanding brand presence. These collectibles now allow fans to bring a piece of their favorite worlds into their everyday lives. I need you Shun to do some translation for us here. Who is huge in the ACG world. Have you had some? What does it stand for?
Well, I have to say I'm not a big fan of all of these goods, but 谷子 is actually the transliteration of the Japanese word 鸽子 and the English word goods, of course, because we know that the language of Japanese has many borrowed words from other languages. So in this area, the phrase 你吃谷吗, or do you eat goods, or do you eat crops in Chinese, isn't actually asking you about the grains, but of course, it's asking if you enjoy buying these ACG merchandise. But what is interesting is that, 谷子, which literally translates to patty. So in this way, in the ACG field, common merchandise is generally divided into two types. So hard merchandise and soft merchandise. And hard merchandise mainly includes figurines and models, just like what Yang just said, the figurines of Hatsune Miku.
Like the little action figures?
Yes.
Okay.
Some of them can be huge.
Oh, can they? Okay.
Yes. Like human
Statue.
size. Well, soft merchandise includes badges, and that's also another interesting way of people call it 巴基 in Chinese, but I think it's also the same reason with 谷子. Also, shiny laser tickets and acrylic figurine stands, keychains, and other types, and all of these are called 谷子 or goods.
I was in a shopping mall in the central business district of Beijing a few days ago, and I think I wandered into one of these shops that you're talking about. I didn't know what was going on in there. There was a lot of figurines, it was a lot of cards, it was a lot of merchandise, and T-shirts and figurines and soft plush dolls as well, like teddy bear style stuff.
Yeah.
And there were action figures of characters that I personally didn't recognize, but I can tell you this, that shop was packed.
Oh.
Absolutely packed. And I think I figured it out, is that fans who are into these characters, and these characters I guess can come from different outlets, like some are video game characters, some are cartoon characters. If they're fans, then they flock to the stores, and that's where they get the merchandise. And I guess why they're buying the merchandise is perhaps another interesting topic. Is it for investment? Is it for trading? Is it just their hobby? I guess maybe a little bit of A, B, and C there.
A whole bunch of reasons, I suppose. And there are some really avid collectors out there, super fans. But also, there are more terms that I need you to help me out here. There is the Sea View goods and Lakeview goods. What does that stand for? And also, if we're talking about Sea View property, that's usually, is it better than Lakeview property?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But also with climate change, then maybe Lakeview is better. So, back to what you would say in the ACG world.
Yeah, that's why, a lot of people like it, of course. And then there are some characters that are not that popular. So these could be the Lakeview goods, which are slightly less rare and expensive than Seaview goods. Also, they also categorize all of these characters or goods into different terms, like 烫门. In this way, we caught a thing that is very popular as 热门. That's called hot. It's hot. And then they caught the one that is more popular than this is extremely hot, which is 烫门. And moderately popular is 温门, which means moderately hot. And cold is unpopular as 冷门. So also prices can vary very greatly. And sometimes to get the extremely popular goods, you have to buy the unpopular ones as well.
So is there
Just like in luxurious industry, right?
Well, what do you mean?
If you need to buy a very expensive bag, you need to buy also some accessories.
Oh, you're referring to that brand which comes with in the iconic orange color, which has a really bad rep. Yeah, because the handbags are so exclusive that I think it's probably unsaid, but, the underlying rule there is basically you need to consume to a certain amount of rubbish just so that you garner the ticket to buy that exclusive handbag.
Interesting. I've never heard of that before. But it sounds like this can become a very expensive hobby, collecting these figurines, if you want it to. Meaning there's lots of ways that you can spend a lot of money here, but you don't have to. You can buy the Lakeview products and, sit by yourself in the cafeteria, I guess, because the Seaview kids wouldn't want to hang out with you, maybe. I don't know what I'm talking about, but it kind of sounds like the situation here.
But yeah, of course. And when there are different categories or levels of goods, then, as you said, people like to collect things. They always want the rare ones, of course, right? And we can see that this goods circle and the strong purchasing power of its members have shocked those outside of the circle.
So they go to the shops or wherever, whatever outlet they find to buy their goods. Then what's the next step? They take them home, obviously, and they put them on display, perhaps. But then is there a strong online community presence? Are there meetups, I wonder? Do they meet up for trading purposes? I know that they do that in Korea because I've seen it with my own two eyes.
It is very popular in Korea as well.
It is indeed. Maybe with these figurines, but the example that I'm referencing is K-pop star stuff. There was a concert one day that was going to take place at 3 p.m., and I happened to be in the area around 1 p.m., and the fans had come and set up almost like a little marketplace. They put their blankets down, they brought their collectibles, and I watched them for a period of time. What they were doing was they put their stuff down, and then one of the members of the group would go around and kind of look at what everyone else had, and if they found something they wanted, then they'd negotiate a trade. It was like a small functioning economy that they had going on there, and I'm guessing that this is part of what's going on here too.
Absolutely, especially when there are some of these kind of meetings. These fans will, I think, exchange their own goods or in the way that trade. Also, there are some auctions there. One of the very famous one is earlier this year, an auction brought the goods culture into the spotlight, actually. A liquid sand mahjong, or a semi-transparent acrylic mahjong, can be auctioned for an astonishing 83,000 yuan. That's around 11,000 USD. And this auction basically, I think, brought up the whole reputation of this goods circle.
I think this can be a really healthy outlet for people, young people, older people, because it sounds like it's something that people just collect, right? That's the positive side of this. I can see the negative side too, where people could really get addicted to this type of thing, where if they're a member of an online community and their friends or even people that they don't know have these really cool seaside figurines or the more expensive things, they might feel a pressure to spend more money so that they can upgrade their own figurines. I can see how that would be a slippery slope as well.
Yeah, and that's from the collectors / consumers and fans point of view. But this is huge for the creators and the companies behind a lot of these very popular intellectual property franchises. And we're seeing that maybe this is sort of like a formula that creators in Japan, in the US, in China as well these days, everybody's playing the game. And with a few really popular homegrown video games in this country, they are doing exactly this, and it is popular.
That is why more and more people are buying these domestic goods instead of Japanese animes or games. In recent years, Chinese novels and games, animations, and radio dramas have continuously developed, accumulating a large fan base among young people or among people in China. For example, the badges, or baji, from the Chinese game company miHoYo's game Genshin Impact, the Yuanshen, have sold over 100,000 or even 300,000 units for several products just on its Tmall flagship store, which is its official domestic online shop, with total badge sales exceeding 5 million from a single store. And other domestic companies such as Tencent, NetEase, Happy Elements are also increasingly focusing on these physical, peripheral products.
If you think about how much money these characters can make for a company, there must be a tremendous amount that goes into the design of these characters, right? Because they know if they hit the jackpot with one of these designs, or with the attitude of the character, or the way the character talks, or whatever the case may be, if they get it right, this can make a tremendous amount of money for a particular company.
Yeah, just think about the Star Wars franchise, right?
Baby Yoda. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say Baby Yoda?
I'm not a fan. I've never watched Star Wars, but I know Baby Yoda because I've seen it being sold in supermarkets and stuff.
Oh, my goodness. Baby Yoda is one of the characters in a show called The Mandalorian, and there are articles all over the internet that suggest that when Disney created this character, they absolutely struck gold. People started watching that TV show just for the reason of how cute Baby Yoda was.
And also it explains why, or partially explains why, Disney bought this franchise off the creator of Star Wars.
George Lucas, yeah.
Yeah, because now, it's not just the movie, the TV show itself, but it's aftermath. How can he monetize it? And merchandising and licensing have become such a big part of it.
It's massive, and it's almost endless. I mean, keychains, T-shirts, pillows, backpacks, shoes, socks, you name it, they can make it, right? Figurines small, figurines human size, cardboard cutouts, teddy bears. I mean, the options are endless.
Yeah.
Yeah, it actually reminded me another point is that the importance of copyright in domestic markets is being more and more aware, right? Domestic consumers' emphasis on these copyright is also making the whole industry more regulated. The rise of any of these kind of trends is often accompanied by rapid proliferation of pirated goods, and which have a terrifyingly strong ability to penetrate markets. But as public awareness of these law improves along with the emergence of related legal cases, consumers' awareness of copyright is also strengthening and making the whole market promising.
And I think you point to something really essential here. That is, you need this really appealing, attractive, long-lasting of appeal of the intellectual property franchise to start with. And then I think the comforting thing here is that, with more of this legal protection and awareness of the consumers, then those who bear the brainchild, who put in all the effort in creating these stories and characters, and then maybe they can truly benefit more from it, as opposed to, well, maybe it's a one-time buyout, and then they don't really sort of benefit more from what they've created.
Yeah, I think that's the business point of view. And I think on the consumer point of view, this can be a really important hobby to people. What I mean is, it means a lot to them. A former coworker of mine, not talking about these specific figurines, but there's a doll that's famous in Japan. Now, she's not from Japan. She's from the United States. I won't mention the name of the doll. But anyway, this brand of doll, it is insanely popular. They have a conference once a year, no joke, in
the dolls?
In Tokyo, where the owners of the dolls travel together with their dolls to this conference, and then they share their stories about them. There's a massive social media site where they become friends with each other, and they share the stories of their dolls and things like that. This is bigger than I think we realize, and I think to a lot of people this is their number one hobby, and if done healthily, I think it's kind of a good thing for people.
Right, and this used to be a pretty niche culture or subculture when I was growing up, but now it seems like there's maybe a wider acceptance to doing this, and it's not seen as though just some kids from elementary school and teenagers might be collecting these figurines and all kinds of cars, keychains, and other kinds of merch, but it could be adults and some high achievers, contributing members of society. They've even proudly sort of flown their nerd flag on this, and that's great. One example is Tianlu. That he's a great actor from Hong Kong, and he apparently has a whole warehouse of statue, real human being size figurines.
Wow.
Of like the Marvel universe and all kinds of other stuff, and he's shared some of these photos online. And of course, the ACG fans were, I suppose, very jealous of him.
Yeah, going crazy, and he probably got a bunch of new fans on that day, I guess.
Also, of course, many companies have seen, the profit in this area and collaborating a lot of these ACG game companies or anime companies. A lot of these companies viewed commercialization as a crucial part of, their brand development.
And you're listening to Roundtable. Coming up, if you're a fan of ordering in, you might have spotted a new line item on your bill. Packaging fees. That's the latest trend in the Chinese food delivery world. Has everyone talking. Are they a necessary evil for sustainable packaging or just a sneaky way to boost profits? Stay tuned.
Looking for passion? How about fiery debate? Want to hear about current events in China from different perspectives? Then tune in to Roundtable, where East meets West, and understanding is the goal.
It's the hour of Roundtable with myself, He Yang. I'm joined by Yu Shun and Steve Hatherley in the studio. In the fast-paced food delivery business in China, there's new buzz that's hotter than your morning latte. Packaging fees. From your favorite local eateries to the big-name global chains, everyone seems to be adding a little extra to your bill for these nifty takeout containers and bags. Are these fees a fair trade-off for eco-friendly packaging or just a sneaky way to hike prices? It seems all of a sudden packaging fees are being added to the bill of some big global chains and big companies in food delivery in China. So tell us about all this buzz.
Yeah, recently Chinese food delivery market sees more brands decide to charge their packaging fees or have been doing so. The list of brands goes from global food giants such as Starbucks and KFC to local established brands such as the milk tea brand Chaji or Bawang Chaji. So basically their packaging fees can range from 1 yuan to maybe 3 yuan for each package, and this may vary from different ways of counting it. For example, maybe they may charge for each item, or they may charge for this single order of your delivery. So I think also that is one of the reasons why consumers are complaining about it. Are no standards of charging packaging fees.
It's just up to the individual company. So you mentioned the coffee company and then the chicken company. Those two companies independently made up their own mind about increasing their packaging fees or introducing this new cost. This was not a policy that was introduced to Beijing or the rest of the country. This is just an independent decision from the business.
It seems to be the case. And previously there are other companies a lot less well known. They've been charging packaging fees, but now I suppose, the bigger the brand, and all of a sudden when you're charging extra fees, then people are talking about it. And with the coffee brand, actually it came out to explain that they're not blatantly adding new fees in the sense that, yes, there's this charge of packaging fees, but it's going to be offset in its delivery fees, that they're reducing the amounts, the equal amount in the delivery fees.
So the price doesn't actually change in that one particular case.
Example, because they're really trying to calm the internet users' complaints, I suppose.
So when you're talking about having to pay for packaging fees, okay, so let's use an example of a coffee company. If you get a coffee delivered to our radio studio, does that mean that you're paying for the paper bag that it comes in, and the cardboard thing that they stick it in so it doesn't spill, and the cup, and the plastic lid, all of that, that's what you're being charged for?
Yes, of course, and also the delivery fee.
Okay. I'll play devil's advocate. Why not? Why shouldn't we pay for that?
I was thinking is that because some of these companies, they used to charge actually a big amount of delivery fee, and I have always been thinking that is all included, no matter it's the delivery fee or the package fee. And in that way, if they are charging extra money for, they're saying, the package, I'm not the one who accepted. I will just go to the store.
Yeah, I understand your point, and I understand how netizens feel about this as well. The only point I was trying to make is, if we go to a sit-down restaurant, right, a brick and mortar, and we sit down and we order some rice, well, that rice will come out on a plate. We don't have to pay for the plate because that plate can be reused. It can be washed and used again by the restaurant. When we get takeout or when we get delivery, that restaurant ordered and paid for those takeout containers. So if that cost is being passed on to us, is that something we should really be complaining about? I think the problem is they're doing this now. Yeah. You know, all of a sudden. Yeah, and for consumers, it's very confusing. Why now? Why all of a sudden? There's no policy. You're just making a decision. You must be trying to save money, and you are charging me for it. I think that's probably the biggest reaction.
Yes, the consistency, I think, is also one of the reasons that these consumers are complaining, because maybe back then people will think that all of your, no matter the packaging fee, are included in the price that I paid for, right? And now you're not saying anything that we're having new policies, but you're just charging it for no reason, and the consistency is not consecutive enough for consumers to accept it.
Right, and if you're going to charge me for the packaging, then shouldn't you be reducing the food cost to me by the same amount so that I shouldn't be paying any more to be a loyal customer at your business? Is that not worth anything to you? I get that argument, too. I totally do.
Right. There are also some reviews talking about in different Chinese cities, new regulation have been rolled out about stricter rules in, let's say, sorting out trash, in some of this, sort of the in managing waste. And therefore, these companies are kind of responding to local regulations as well, that at least it gives them some reason to think about the environmental cost of deliveries and all these excessive packaging waste that we've talked about for years in this country. And, in the past, the discussion often has been revolving around why over-package all these foods and drinks that are being delivered to us. The reason is that it's just so much easier for the restaurants and cafes to overpackage than deal with your complaints and sending stuff back to you again.
Absolutely. It's like when you go to the supermarket and you buy 3 bananas, right? You'll find those bananas sometimes wrapped in a styrofoam pack. Then you'll have the plastic wrap on top of that, and then the styrofoam container. When all you're going to do is immediately take off all of that plastic and styrofoam and put it in the recycling, right? So what's the point? Well, the point is they have to keep things in perfect conditions for their customers, the food, because if they don't, just like you said, oh boy, look out. The complaints would cost them a whole lot more than those containers do.
So what do you think is likely going to be the impact of this in the future? Are we going to see more folks who are going to turn up in the storefront and then just buy your drinks and meals there instead of sitting on your couch and waiting for the delivery?
How much is the average increase in price? How much are people paying for the packaging fee?
It depends on the company. Sometimes it's 1 yuan, sometimes maybe 3.